one of the things that I think the founders understood, and that I think I forgot until comparatively recently, was liberalism is not designed to answer those transcendent questions of why am I here? What purpose and meaning does my life have? Or what's the ultimate foundation for right and wrong that's larger than just my preferences? I mean, it's tried, and some very great minds have made some headway on that. People like, Kant and Rawls, but it really can't. And so I view secular liberalism and in America, Christianity, our prevalent religious tradition, specifically Protestant Christianity, is like two planks that won't stand up by themselves but need to lean on each other. Liberalism can't provide those fundamental transcendent values questions. Religion by itself can't do the job that science and politics does to organize a very big, diverse, constantly bickering, disagreeing society. But they can influence each other positively. And when that works, a lot of other things work. And when that fails, a lot of other things fail. And one of the things that we see, I think, that's failing is when Christianity is abandoned by large numbers of people and allows itself to get politicized, as has happened. Um, Religion seeps into politics. Politics becomes a religion. Neither one is really doing its job. They're doing each other's job, but badly, and you get the mess we're in.
Something uncompromising about that. Can we nerd out? I want to invite you to nerd out with me for a minute about the.
I'm your man.
I know you are.
I'm here for that.
So, my favorite line from Democracy in America, I think I can quote it. Tocqueville says, "The Americans have used the liberties. Sorry, Americans have used their liberties to combat the individualism born of equality, and they have won." And what I like about that line, I think it summarizes the whole book. So he says the Americans have used their liberties to combat the individualism that's born of equality, and they have won. And what he means is, in an age of equality, and before the age of equality, there was a great chain of being. Everyone was given assigned a thick place in the world of obligations of family and friends and careers, all just what they were assigned. But in an age of equality now, people are broken from that chain. And at one point, he says the chain is broken and scattered across an egalitarian plane. I didn't use that phrase, but that's the idea. So everyone's now broken. Every chain link is now broken and scattered across this egalitarian plane. That's individualism, which he sees Tocqueville sees as a corrosive, anomie, Nietzschean emptiness. You're there on this plane now, broken from your chain, free, but you're just there. And then so the Americans, he says, use their liberties to combine with one another to rebuild a social structure of their own devising. And a lot of the social structures that they're devising, as Tocqueville charts, are religious organizations, the art of association, these ways of being together that are thickly connected. People build thick connections with the way they choose to use their liberties. So he says, as I understand him, that in America, there is civil society growing up, and religiosity is a huge part of this, that people are using that to combat the individualism they'd otherwise be saddled with if they're just simply enjoying the benefits of the rise of equality. So that's kind of a long, complicated, maybe overly nerdy element. But what do you think of that? When I was saying before about the corrosive elements, that's the Tocquevillian take on that the age of equality, which is a wonderful thing in all kinds of ways, as you described from the Declaration, nonetheless generates these forces that are dividing and separating and freeing. But then they raise the question, what's the meaning of your life? What are you going to do with it? What is this place for? Why are we really here? Which I think has parallels in the university case, by the way. But for now, stay with America. The broad. Do you want to? Does that Tocquevillian line ring familiar to you? Do you see religion as something people are using to combine one another, and if that becomes weakened, they become less able to develop lives of meaning? What do you make of all that?
Well, again, so much there, and Tocqueville is so rich. And one of my reflections on it is, that the post-liberals keep crowing about how liberalism, if left strictly to its own devices, will undermine itself. And my response to that is, yeah, and you know how you know that? Because we told you. We've been telling you that since John Locke. We've been saying there is an assignment in a liberal democracy for civil society in general, and that includes faith organizations in particular. You've got a job to do. We can't provide meaning in life. That's not why we're here. That is not our assignment. Our assignment is to create space in society for civil organizations like faith organizations to do that work of giving people purpose, identity, bringing them together in collective projects. And we all need to worry when that doesn't happen. And that's why we all got so worried, rightly, when Robert Putnam published Bowling Alone, I think, what, 25, 26 years ago?
Yeah.
So I don't think that religion is the only possible source of identity, collectivity, um, transcendence, morality, any of those things. But I'll say two things. First of all, the great faith tradition, specifically in the United States, Christianity, which is our founding faith, Protestantism specifically, is different from neo substitutes like wokeness, environmentalism, MAGA, soul cycle, or what have you, because it's a rich teaching that goes back 2,000 years, has a deeply developed sense of ethics, has whole systems in place for transmitting itself to future generations, for bringing people together in an act of worship, the powerful liturgy, all of those things. You can't just go out and invent those for yourself. You know, there's lots of DIY spiritual groups, but they can't do that. That's really kind of special and hard to replace. And the second thing is that although maybe in 50 or 100 years, people in America will have figured out substitutes for Christianity in upholding its part of instilling Republican virtues. Right now, at a minimum, it has to be true that if Christianity and secular democracy are pulling in opposite directions, if they're tearing each other apart, which increasingly is what's happening, that makes everything else in our civic life more difficult. So the nub of my book is to try to say to Christians and to secular people, look, we all have a stake in helping Christians, encouraging Christians to elevate those core principles of their own teaching, which align so much more with James Madison than with MAGA.